It was a cold Tuesday morning in Cleveland, Ohio. I'd been working at Carter Manufacturing for 17 years. 17 years of early mornings, late nights, and doing whatever it took to keep the company running. That morning, Mr. Carter called me into his office. His tone was unusually formal. "John," he said, without even looking me in the eye, "we're going to have to let you go." I was stunned. "Let me go? Why?" My last performance review was flawless. He sighed, leaning back in his leather chair. "You're, well, you're just too expensive now. The company needs fresh blood." I walked out of that office with my dignity in pieces. My coworkers avoided my gaze. No one wanted to get caught in the fallout. By the time I reached my truck, my shock had transformed into something sharper: anger. But it wasn't until later that night, sitting alone in my kitchen with a cup of black coffee, that I realized something. I knew things about this company, things that could destroy it. For days, I stayed home, replaying that conversation over and over in my head. Anger burned in my chest, but another feeling began to take its place: determination. I hadn't just been an employee. I had been the guy who made things work. I'd seen the safety violations swept under the rug, the fake inspection reports, the shady deals with suppliers. Mr. Carter thought he was cutting off a loose end. What he'd actually done was release the one person who could tear his empire down. I made a decision that night. He was going to feel what I felt: betrayed, blindsided, and humiliated. My small living room became a war room. In the center, my old beat-up oak table. On it, my decade-old but reliable laptop, stacks of old production schedules, photocopied safety reports, and a half-empty mug of coffee. Night after night, I dug through everything I had. Paperwork I'd taken home over the years, old backup files, notes I'd scribbled in the margins of my planner. Patterns began to emerge. There were multiple contracts where the technical specs hadn't been met, yet the report said "passed inspection." In some cases, materials had been swapped for cheaper, substandard versions. And then there were the safety violations: machines without proper guards, ignored OSHA warnings, accidents never officially recorded. I didn't rush. Revenge done in anger is sloppy. I wanted precision. I wanted the kind of payback that would leave scars. As I stared at the glowing laptop screen one night, I whispered to myself, the game's just getting started. The first step was getting close, without actually setting foot inside Carter Manufacturing. I still had friends there, people who trusted me. They didn't know they were giving me ammunition. They just thought we were catching up. One evening, I met Mark, an old engineering buddy, at a retro diner on the edge of town. Over greasy burgers and bottomless coffee, we talked about sports, kids, the good old days. Eventually, Mark's tone shifted. He leaned forward and lowered his voice. "John, things have gone downhill since you left. Carter's been cutting corners to speed up production. A couple months ago, one of the machines failed. Almost took a guy's hand off." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't show it, but my pulse quickened. I had just been handed a golden thread to pull. When I got home that night, I wrote in big block letters at the top of my notebook: safety violations, press material. Over the next few weeks, I kept piecing things together. Some of it came from my old files, some from public records, and some from casual conversations with current employees. One night, I found an email chain from 2018, buried in an old backup folder. Mr. Carter and two executives had forged signatures on a quality control report to cover up substandard materials. A big client had suspected problems, but the falsified documents said everything was fine. The engineer, whose signature they'd faked, still working there. I knew talking to him was risky, but if I could approach him just right, I might get even more. Now, I had two aces up my sleeve: safety violations and forged inspection reports. I just needed the perfect time to play them. One Friday afternoon, I spotted Carter's driver, Tom, pulling into a small coffee shop downtown. He didn't see me, so I stayed back and listened as he chatted on the phone. He mentioned that next week, Carter had a huge investor meeting lined up. This wasn't just any meeting. This was the kind that could change the company's future. If those investors caught wind of the violations and fraud right before signing a deal, they'd bolt, and Carter's biggest day would turn into his worst. I circled the date on my calendar with a red Sharpie. D-Day. I knew I couldn't pull this off alone. I reached out to two trusted friends: Mike, a reporter for the local paper, and Sam, a lawyer I'd known since college. First, I gave Mike a small sample of the documents. His eyes widened. "This is front page material." Sam reviewed everything from a legal standpoint, making sure Carter couldn't come after me when this went public. We became a three-man strike team. This wasn't just my revenge anymore. It was a mission to take down a corrupt operation. 3 days before D-Day, everything was in place. The files were organized, the press releases drafted, the legal reviews done. That night, I walked along the Lake Erie shoreline, listening to the waves crash against the pier. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was I really doing the right thing? Then I remembered Carter's smug face as he told me I was too expensive. My doubt turned to resolve. The morning of the big investor meeting, Carter walked into the boardroom with a smile. He didn't know that, at that very moment, the online edition of the Cleveland Chronicle had just published a bombshell. Local manufacturing plant, rocked by safety scandal, forged reports. Carter's name was all over it, backed by scanned documents, photos, and testimony. Phones started buzzing in that boardroom. Investors began to whisper. One by one, they left the table. By the time Carter realized what was happening, the deal was dead. A week later, news broke. Carter had resigned. The company's stock had tanked, and the investors had pulled out entirely. I never came forward. My name was never mentioned in the articles. Instead, I quietly opened my own small workshop in a rented garage. Every morning, as I sipped my coffee, I'd glance at the old notebook on my shelf and smile. Some victories don't need cheering crowds. Some of them, like mine, are loudest in silence.